I think we can start. I'm really very happy and grateful to Dr. Venkatachalam Anbumoji. He is a Senior Research Fellow, Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia, ERIA, which is a very famous research institute in the Bay of Bengal region, in Jakarta, Indonesia. And we are extremely grateful to him to conduct this session on environment, climate change, and BIMSTEC. So this is, as we are talking, this is a part of the capacity building program in the Bay of Bengal integration process, which SANEM is doing in collaboration with Asia Foundation. And just to remind the participants who would be listening and interacting with our distinguished speaker today, that SANEM in collaboration with Asia Foundation and few other regional think tanks and research organizations organized the third Bay of Bengal Economic Dialogue on 11-12 July this year, and which were supposed to actually provide some input to the 6th BIMSTEC summit, which was scheduled to be held in the first week of September. But since that summit date has been shifted, probably we are hopeful that this year it will take place. So the document we produced, the Bangkok Declaration, I'll request Takrim Shurid to share the document later after our distinguished speaker presents his, makes his presentation, and after the Q&A session, Takrim Shurid will share the outcome document, what we call the Bangkok Declaration, with the participants for their understanding or to know what we did, what kind of discussion we had. So I will now request Takrim Shurid, SANEM's research associate, to introduce our distinguished speaker today, and then moderate the session. And the kind of the idea of the division of the time is that our distinguished speaker will speak for 40-45 minutes, and then the remaining time we'll allocate for Q&As. Over to you, Shurid.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second day of Bay of Bengal Regional Integration Capacity Building Program organized by SANEM and the Asia Foundation. Today, we have two sessions. The first session is titled Environment, Climate Change and BIMSTEC, will be conducted by Dr. Venkatachalam Anbumoji. We are very glad to have him with us. Dr. Anbumoji is the Senior Research Fellow at the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia in Jakarta. He has specialization in energy policy, climate change, and the sustainable development, with a particular focus on the regional economic cooperation in East Asia and ASEAN. He has extensive experience in advising policymakers, international organizations, and the private sector on the energy efficiency, climate change mitigation, and the green infrastructure development. He held key positions in organizations such as Asian Development Bank and served as a professor at universities in Japan and India. Dr. Anbumoji has published numerous books, articles, and policy reports on sustainable development, energy policy, and climate resilience. He holds a PhD from the University of Tokyo and continues to play a pivotal role in shaping the sustainable development policies across the Asia-Pacific region. Now, I would like to request Dr. Anbumoji to start his session. Over to you, Dr. Anbumoji.
Okay, thank you, Takrim, and thank you, Professor Salim, and for having me in this afternoon. And by the way of introduction, and I already introduced, and so I would like to get into the subject, and particularly, can you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can. Probably you can put it into the PowerPoint slide. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What I'll be talking, and I think it has been introduced. The topic for the today is to know more about what kind of consequences the way and when these economies are integrated, and what in the next 40 minutes I would like to touch upon is what are the sustainability challenges or the sustainability impacts that economic integration brings, and we will see that is our focus here is on BIMSTEC, but we will look into that is on your left and right. That means how this ASEAN, particularly the Southeast Asian economic integration, has brought in the benefits as well as some of the frictions with the sustainability domain. And then second question, I would like to see and have a better understanding of you at the end of the session is who are the enablers if we are looking for resilient economies or the climate smart economies. And finally, and if BIMSTEC is looking at a single market or a complete economic integration, and what type of a partnership, what kind of opportunities exist where the different stakeholders from the different countries come together and can build a sustainable future. So I'll try to bring some of the facts and the trends and as well as the kind of a vision and where you people can think and the existing risk and emerging opportunities as well as the areas to find out the cooperation. You all know about BIMSTEC, and BIMSTEC is 5 countries. And if you look into it, this is BIMSTEC is sandwiched between 2 blocks. On the left-hand side, you have the SAARC, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. On the right-hand side, you have the ASEAN. And ASEAN, we can say it is a highly integrated market, or it is moving towards a single market. So what our understanding is, BIMSTEC is looking towards that kind of, or inching towards that kind of an open regionalism, which is different from the SAARC. Many of you know that is how the functional is SAARC is. It is progressing, but when compared to open regionalism practiced by ASEAN, it is lagging behind. That's why, and this BIMSTEC has identified 14 areas to look into it, where the countries and the economies can come together and work together. One is to promote the trade and investment, and the transport sector and the tourism sector, technologies, and then finally the climate change. You know, this is climate change comes at the bottom, but you know that is all these activities 1 to 11 or 1 to 10 and may have an implications. So each one has the positive and the negative implications. When for example, when you promote the trade and investment, it has an unintended consequences of aggravating or accelerating the economic activities that may be harmful to your natural environment. Or sometimes if it is directed in a way, I think it could bring clean energy investment can flow. I think probably in the last session you might have heard there is a cross-border energy cooperation. And the agriculture, how it can promote this technological flows that can happen along with this trade and investment, with the spillover effect can help the agriculture to improve the productivity. So it is a kind of a mixed basket of results, and that where there is a lot of opportunities exist for these 5 countries come together. So many of you know and what drives this economic integration and all this economic integration, and it's happening anywhere, and whether it is in the European Union or it is the ASEAN or the East Asia. Basically, it aims for the scaling up the economies, and that is where there is the and that scaling up economies comes with that export specialization. And this export specialization has brought in amalgamation of the skills, and when these two are combined, you have the gravity, and where that is a trade, investment, and technology flows in. And this is a kind of a normal neoclassical economic theory shows that is with this export specialization and the skills, then you can bring the market forces moves in. But on the other hand, this market forces could also has then impact, and this spatial and the social effects. Spatial effects comes in this resource use, and that sometimes may become unsustainable. And most of the countries, when they are coming into this economic block or the export specialization, and basically they target for the consumers in the other countries. And during the course of economic development, they also becomes consumers. Their living standard increases, and their consumption pattern also increases. So first they export for these resources for their consumers in outside their economic boundaries, but during the course they also try to consume more resources, and their material consumption increases. That's where that is the friction comes in, this continued use of the resources, and continued increase in their material wealth creates some frictions. So this frictions has an impact on these system boundaries, the biosystem boundaries, or the ecosystem boundaries, or these emissions the whole global there is a public goods which has been freely available has been affected. So here what we need to think about it, not only the gravity and the growth, but it's also the frictions. That is where most of the countries are now struggling. Most of these trading blacks and economic blacks are finding how we can balance or rebalance the growth with the environmental and the economic sustainability. One of the good example and how this economic integration and can help the poverty elevation, and are the job creation is the example of the Southeast Asia and the East Asia. And if you see, there is the ASEAN Plus countries, and they have the several FTAs and also mega trade agreements. And it's all started with the bilateral, and then go to the multilateral, and then it becomes this regional free trade agreements. So if you look into that ASEAN Economic Community that has been established in 2008, it is more than 50 years of the journey. And this 10 plus 3 countries, and now one more is coming in. And what they are looking is kind of a 4-pillared approaches. One is that is a single market and production base, which is aiming for a free flow of goods, services, capital, and the free flow of investment and the skilled labor. And the second, during this process, second pillar is looking at this is a competitive economic region, and this competition comes from making the right policies, right tax policies, and the commerce policies, and as well as the competition policies. There is a second pillar where most of these policies are getting synchronized. And the third pillar is the equitable economic development, and it is a kind of no one is left behind when these all 10 countries, which are small and medium-sized economies, when they are trading with these big giants like China, Korea, and Japan, and how they can make it an inclusive and economic development. That comes the certain classes that is embedded in this economic integration process. And the fourth pillar is they all know that it is an imperative to become a part of the global supply chain, and where there is a FDAs and comprehensive economic partnerships are looking into it, and how they can bring this small and medium-sized economies, such as enterprises, into a kind of a global supply chain network. So this is how this is the ASEAN and East Asian economies has been getting integrated into this global economy, and they help. So one of the benefit of this kind of an open regionalism is the technological progress. And if you look into the past history of 30 years, and that open regionalism, the trade and investment help the countries move in their technological achievement index. And if you see, that is the top ranking country in the Japan, and followed by Taipei and Singapore and Korea. And when become a part of the flying geese theory, and this technology, they achieve the high technology achievements. Second one is also technological diffusion, and this technological diffusion happens along with these trade agreements. And when these companies move, and they also impart the skill training. That is how the countries in this region move forward and help buy some of the advanced economies like Japan. If you look into this flying geese theory, the first comes the kind of an ODA, official development assistance. For example, from Japan, help the countries in Southeast Asia, like Thailand and Malaysia. So what they do is they bring the connectivity. And then second, once the connectivity is made, then the FDI, foreign direct investment, comes in. That brings in this technology, and as well as the skill training, the vocation, particularly the vocational skill training. So this is how the channels through which this technology investment and the human skills has been happening up. But if you look into this region, and not all are good. And if you see, as I told before in the beginning, you try to export for the consumers in the advanced economies, and so basically that is a product and services are happening up. But if you look into the past 30 years, there is a drastic changes in the ecosystem parameters under which these economies operate. And for example, if you look into this Southeast Asia region, and the biodiversity has been declined, and nearly about 40% of biodiversity loss has been seen. And if you look into that, is the region, and which may be driven by the tourism and the plastic waste swimming into these waters of Bay of Bengal has been outnumber the marine biodiversity, and then the deforestation, and most of the countries are resource exporting, and the current deforestation is estimated to be about 8,000 kilometers square of loss of the forest. Most of them are tropical forest. And this has been also accelerated by this increased demand for the land and wood and minerals, and that's happening. So then water cycle has been impacted, and over abstraction of the groundwater has been seen in many countries, and they estimate by 2050 about 30% fall of the freshwater resources, and the droughts has been becoming one of the severe challenges that's attributed to the climate change. And also there is a most of these countries, and because of this open regionalism policies and the trade and investment, many industries comes in at a faster rate. And if you look into these 1980s and 1990s, most of these heavy industries and the textile industries moved into it, and say they account for nearly ASEAN's population is about 600 million, but it's only 4%, but they produce about 9% of the industrial waste. And then it comes with the resource use. Most of these resources are going as a waste. And then another probably last session you might see there is the energy transition, and still this is the share of the renewable energies is less than 14% in this region. And then the climate change. So by 2050, climate change will be impacted, and that is they are most pronounced in this region, and so it is a kind of a global change, but it has the regional um, dimensions, are the regional public good in nature, and so these frictions are very vivid, and there are several empirical studies that shows um, stronger correlation between this trade and investment that is brought in without a kind of a policy framework for the sustainable development. So if you zoom in this climate change and this BIMSTEC region and is considered to be the most vulnerable to this climate change, and it is estimated that is about 2 to 8% of GDP could be lost depending upon where your economy is situated, and so there is the water insecurity is very pronounced, and you can see that is the how that is India, Bangladesh, and Myanmar and Thailand will be. You can see there is almost water security, food insecurity, and the coastal planning is these countries are rated high among the Indo-Pacific. And other than that, there is an heat stress that has an impact on the health, and as well as the energy insecurity is also looming when this erratic rainfall happens, because BIMSTEC countries very much depend upon the hydro resources. So this is a kind of an estimation, and it shows that is the it shows the South and Southeast Asia is in the most vulnerable, and next to the Sub-Saharan Africa in the global impacts of the climate change. So it shows the cost of non-action is much more than the cost of the action, and it shows and so there are several ways of addressing this risk, and countries are some of the countries are moving fast, and some countries are not so. But if you look into it, it is a kind of plot that is being made and between the vulnerability and the adaptation, and we see that is we can see the countries, we can rank the countries based on how vulnerable they are to this climate change. So this vulnerability comes this all these insecurities, the food security, food insecurity, and then water insecurity, energy insecurity. If we combine together, and if we find almost all the BIMSTEC countries are in the bottom line, so they are vulnerable. They are most vulnerable, like Bangladesh and Nepal and Bhutan, and these countries are most vulnerable and on the left-hand side when compared to other countries like Thailand and on the other hand, if you see the readiness and to improve the resilience, that means how far your adaptive capacity is. If you find the most of this readiness in the adapt only we find a few countries like Japan, Malaysia, and Brunei, but if you kind of most of the BIMSTEC countries are in the water and they are not yet ready to face the risk. So here the countries need to tackle and so they need to embrace this environmental stress, but also improve that resilience. And here this improving the resilience are the improving the adaptive capacity, and it is not going to happen overnight, and it need a multi-stakeholder partnership, and where you need companies, knowledge institutes, and the policymakers need to come forward, and they need to find, and we did a kind of an developed, this is a kind of a framework that is we developed for the ASEAN, and so all this improving the resilience or the improving the adaptive capacity started with this awareness rising. That means we need to build the scientific understanding and how much is the risk that is you have, your countries, your sectors, and then your communities that need most of the scientific understanding, that need to develop, and the models, most of the models exist, but we don't have the models at the at the at the uh, micro level and the meso level, and we have the models for the country level that need to be downscaled. Once it is downscaled, we need to inform and we need to make the targeted communications among the stakeholders. Whether you are from the agriculture ministry or the planning ministry or the water ministry, we need to see that is what that model means, what is the our future scenario means. So for this takes about 3 to 4 years, and then only there is a wide spectrum of uh, activities are involved in the adaptive capacity. For example, in the case of agriculture, developing these drought-tolerant crops. In the case of the water sector, how we can increase the resilience capacity of your reservoirs. So all this needs pilot activities, and if you are planning for the coastal infrastructure and what type of infrastructure could be built, what will be the buffer zone length, and these things need a pilot activities, and then these pilot activities need to be implemented and it need to be tested, and then finally based on this accumulated experiences, and we can build make an adaptation as a kind of a resilience as a capacity of the business as usual. If you look at countries that has been adopted these measures, that it took nearly 7 years, 7 to 10 years to mainstream one measure of climate change adaptation in the sector level or the economic level. This is the challenge we have it, and this challenge need a multi-stakeholder partnership, and it involves the private companies, the knowledge institutes, and the community-based organization. So most of the countries we get seen that is we don't have that kind of an adaptive capacity. Why? And when we see the mainstreaming, that is all the climate change risks has been incorporated into the sectoral development planning. And if you look why we find difficulties in most of the countries, most of the emerging economies, and we find there is uncertainty in the climate change, and say it's also limited public awareness. We know there is the climate risks are there, but we don't know what is the magnitude of the risk at the national level, at the measure level, at the district level, or at the farm level. This knowledge gap exists. And second thing is we do have a limited structural and non-structural measures. We need a policies. We need to redesign the hard infrastructure to absorb the climate risk. But there is a continuum of this infrastructure. This has to be combined with the soft infrastructure, which is the policies and programs. So here we found the capacity gap, and not all the institutions, the government institutions, or the local governments, or the private sector, small and medium enterprises, or the communities, most vulnerable people, the women and the younger population, they don't have the kind of resources to understand the risk. And the third one is the weak public and private finance. And if you look into these financial flows, particularly for the climate risk, so far most of this risk management or the risk financing is coming from the public sector. That is for the disasters and the climate risk adaptation. Mostly it is happening at the budget, coming from the budget outlays. We know that is these countries and most of the emerging economies, we don't have the fiscal space, particularly these after the COVID, after the spending, and we find our fiscal space is not that much great to finance all this risk, long-term risk. And also we had a kind of a perception that is adapting to the climate change is a costly. So when in the long term, and we found and the long-term benefits oversee this is the short-term cost. That is a kind of finance or the mindset gap exists. So how we can solve, and that is a challenge. And here how we can address it, and it could be addressed at the three levels. One is the adhering to these global agreements, and most of these BIMSTEC countries and five economies is a part of the global agreement. And for example, Sustainable Development Goals or the Paris Agreement or the Sendai Framework that brings a kind of a guiding principles for the countries. And then these are the kind of aspirational goals where the countries has committed for it, and then based on this country's commitment, and then it can look into the regional cooperation. And for example, if you look into the ASEAN and these 10 countries within this framework of the global framework, they also find that the areas that is how they can cooperate together. And for example, ASEAN has developed a framework for the circular economy that addresses basically the resource consumption issues. Then they have the socio-cultural community blueprint that looks into the air pollution and the water pollution that comes along with this ASEAN economic framework. Then they also developed the framework for the sustainable tourism, particularly the sectors. But all these things are based on these national laws and regulations. That is the basic foundation framework. And this framework, which very much lies in the, for example, in the case of the climate change mitigation, they very much lie with these NDCs, nationally determined contributions. And then air and the water pollution standards, and then the carbon credit schemes and the forestry law. So there is a three level that is the where that is the, if you are looking for the such future and we wanted to avoid this the frictions that comes with this trade integration, and we need to look at the opportunities for cooperation at the regional level and the global level, and as well as at the national level. And these three frameworks need to be synchronized and need to be aligned together to maximize these benefits of the cooperation. So one of that cooperation exists is for example, and in the case of the climate risk, ASEAN has developed a trans-border disaster information platform. And basically where this is the cloud and the supercomputer and the space infrastructure has been combined together, and they develop a kind of an platform, and that could able to understand and the communication infrastructure, and this remote sensing data has been used with the aid of the high performance computing, and they develop early warning systems in the case of the typhoons and the disasters. So here it needs a kind of an cooperative framework where there is each country upgrade this data and the information, and they provide the various services, and they also help in downscaling these models. So this kind of an framework could be developed, and it could be enhanced within the BIMSTEC to enhance the resilience. So this is about the climate resilience and how we can mitigate this climate risk to build a resilient system. On the other hand, if you look into it, the climate change mitigation, and which is we need a kind of a transformation. And when I said about the NDCs, nationally determined contributions, if we combined together, what it has been looking means it is looking for a great transformation, and there's a Paris climate agreement, and it shows there are three areas and this transformation. One is it need to reduce the energy intensity, and currently in the case of these ASEAN and East Asia, it is about 6.2, and it need to be reduced to 2.5. This is energy efficiency is a area that is where you can get a win-win. So it means that it's producing more with less energy. So it brings the competitiveness. And second thing is the decarbonization of the electricity. So you'll be switching from the fossil fuel-based river economies into a renewable energy-based. So that needs the reducing the emission intensity. That need some structural transformation within your economy and how that is energy is used. And the final one is the induce the fuel switching, moving from the fossil fuel based to these more biofuel or the hydro based. So this is the NDCs, and your NDCs, your country's NDCs. We did a study, and it is a very interesting, and sees that is the still you can do this transformation can happen, and this transformation, this is how much is the cost. And for example, we calculated for India, and the cost of meeting this Paris Agreement target could be made negative. That means there is no cost involved. So it is the case with Southeast Asia also, and South Asia. So here, how we can make this cost? This is through the trading and finding ways. That is one is how that carbon is traded, and second thing is identifying the co-benefit. The climate change mitigation comes with certain co-benefits. For example, switching from the fossil fuel to these renewable energy resources can bring energy security. That means the avoided expenditure on the foreign exchanges. Second thing is improved from switching from the coal to this, for example, biofuel, or the solar and wind. It can bring the drastic improvement in the air quality, which you have seen in the during the COVID period. So these are the co-benefit. So by harnessing the co-benefit and by bringing this efficiency through the development of the carbon market. So here, if you have the kind of opportunity to reduce the emissions, and if you sell that carbon towards the high apartment sectors, then you get it resources, the revenue. In that way, you can bring that efficiency and the equity. So by this, and there is a possibility that this we can reduce the cost of this climate change mitigation, and we can achieve these NDCs. Another area of where that is a BIMSTEC need to look into is the circular economy. That means the transforming the waste into resources. So this was that is the how resource inefficient most of the countries in the BIMSTEC is, like Thailand. When compare the Thailand and Japan or Germany, and they produce they require more materials to produce 1 kg of the product or the services. So that means we need to find, and if you take the case of Bangkok, the solid waste that has been produced has been increased nearly 3 times over a 30-year period. But if you look into this waste, and only 19% of the waste in the Bangkok has been recycled or managed properly. So here there is a plenty of opportunities there, and how we can find a value for this waste into resources. That is where that circular economy is focusing on. So here we have the opportunity of transforming the waste into energy or the material stream with the 80% of the resources going for the dump sites. So that needs kind of innovations, and so if he's scaling up, and this is a kind of a flow program, that is how this is the risk for this if you consume the resources in a way that is we continue to do. This will be further accelerated during your economic integration process. When the further trade and investment comes in, and you will be risking this material extraction. So what we need to do, and we need to find the way of how we can efficiently use the resources by the adaptation of this new paradigm, where there is an equilibrium exists between the resource consumption and the resource use. So it has then price effect also. So if you continue to use the resources, there will be a price effect, a decline in the prices for the low carbon goods. So it needs an innovation and the competitiveness by focusing on less polluting and more environmental friendly products and services, and we can develop a new paradigm of circular economy where the recycling contributes to the new products and service development. It also helps industry collaboration and consolidation, and it can increases the production efficiency. All this need the technology and the finance and the structural transformation in which we look at the trade and investment. So it also help some of the countries. We did a survey here, and this paradigm shift will not be a kind of a costly process. So by doing, we can also create some of the new jobs. This is where says if you put effort your innovation, like how we can see that is how countries like China, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan are doing in terms of the innovation. So innovation is part, that is we need a kind of a huge investment, long-term investment on the technologies and the development. On the other hand, if you look into it, not all the technologies that is you invent are becoming a comparative advantage for your economies, particularly for exporting it. Here they have the kind of a relative comparative advantage for the countries. So here you can see that is the in the case of Japan, the revealed comparative advantage is not in all the sectors, but they do better in the road transport, the storage, and the photovoltaics. But they cannot be competitive in other countries where the wind and hydro. Here, where that is the countries like China and Korea and Taiwan comes in. So BIMSTEC need to think about this kind of an innovation portfolio. where that is each country has the comparative advantage. Then as a region whole, you have a relative comparative advantages that could be harnessed to one for your own economy, second for the regional economy, and third one for the global public good. So this is here also, if you focus in a way that is, you can also look into this, you can create more jobs. So you are creating a wealth that reduces that environmental load, but also it create a new jobs, and these new jobs are coming mostly in the case of industry sector, that is the energy efficiency and the building energy efficiency. It exists in the transport sector. For example, new electric cars, where the Thailand and India is leading, and some could be become a kind of other countries could become a follower. Second is the energy sources like a nuclear energy and the onshore and offshore wind. So here there is a potential for developing a production network. That's why BIMSTEC countries can have a industrial policy, the new industrial policies that can look into this new sunrise industries that has the potential to create jobs while it is reducing the emissions and the pollutions. So here another, and this is about the green technologies, and also another emerging area is the digital technologies. When you are that thing, I think the last year during the COVID and India exemplified and how the digital public infrastructure could be able to bring more social inclusion. So this social inclusion frontier could also be expanded to include the sustainability benefits. So that is where there is the ASEAN has developed a ASEAN digital economy framework. So it also look into that is the path for example inclusive growth. And we applied the same framework. And for example, devices, smart sensors, big data, and the analytics. It can help your economies to grow faster in a smarter way, but also the resilient way. For the application of the blockchain technologies, offers a decentralized, transparent platform. So in the case of the transport sector, in the case of, we know there is a smart cities and which is the designated smart cities which apply these dashboard approaches as becoming more resilient during the COVID. So here developing a digital economy framework could enhance your sustainability gains. This is what we did and for ASEAN, and ASEAN has developed a 4IR technological framework, which is built upon these digital technologies, machine learning, 3D printing, and the smart sensors. There are about 10 technologies available to support this framework. There is also another 10 technologies that can form as a part of the circular framework, circular economy framework, like reducing, recycling, repairing. So if we combine together this digital economy framework and the circular economy framework, what we get is an economic efficiency and the sustainability and the inclusion. There is an opportunity for potential. I think it will be the future. And where this is the digital economy and the circular economy bring this sustainability and more inclusion. But that need a kind of a framework conditions. Some of the sectors like agriculture and if you know that is that there exists a digital divide. And if you don't have the framework of cooperation, and if you don't have that is the availability and affordability and the enabling environment, it can further divide the economic divide. We know that is we are not living in a perfect world, and where that is the division exists between the urban areas and the rural areas, between the agriculture sector and the industrial sector and the service sector. It shows that is. It also depends upon this. You can look into some of the countries in the for example, Thailand. It is ranking 84.2 in the case of the digitalization index. On the other hand, it is in the Myanmar. It is 44.1, and India it is a 62.3. So there is a varying level of this digitalization index that is very much related to the availability and second thing is also affordability. That is how much you can offer these new technologies at an affordable cost in the rural areas. Then enabling environment and the market access, online services. It could be, there is a danger that is it could be monopolized. It could be driven by some countries. That also comes with this kind of an open trade and investment policies. It could be monopolized. You need a highly competitive policies. So these are this kind of a technologies offer. It's kind of double-edged sword, and it can provide an opportunity for make you to inclusion. It will make you to more sustainable. But at the same time, if it is not devised in a way that is, it will further aggravate your digital divide and also further contribute for the social divide. We need to be very careful. That's why we need the frameworks. But we believe that is the some of the countries, for example, and India has the high end in the satellite communication technologies. Some countries and then like Thailand and they are emerging with the cloud for analysis. And then Nepal, countries like Nepal and Myanmar and can have a cellular phone work that could be used. And when you're combined together and you have all these positive things to tackle this climate risk and the environment and the pollution risk, you can map it out. What are the hot spots? And then where there is the early warning system could be developed. And it could be applied to these various sectors like water resources and the logistics and then the tourism sectors and as well as the emergency like the pandemics. It could be used. So this technology that is here, we have a lot of potential and then opportunities for building a shared infrastructure. This is a concept of a new concept that is coming, and most of the regions, particularly European Union, is adopting it, and the ASEAN is following it. We develop a common structure that reduces the cost of this infrastructure building, and the benefits are maximized. Another contentious point of view is the climate change mitigation, and we know that is these in these targets, the Paris Agreement targets, and most of the countries are moving towards the net zero. But this journey will not be very easy, and because and why and this electricity consumption. This is where there is the region need to look into. This is the global framework. Most of the countries in this region and has been have a per capita energy consumption or the emission is very much low. So what type of a narrative that is you put forward? And here, if you can look into on the left-hand side, this is the Human Development Index, which is very much linked to this energy consumption. So the question here in most of the countries in the BIMSTEC, India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and Bhutan, and what are your priorities? Whether you go for the first development first and clean up later, or you harness the opportunities for using these resources in a wise manner, in a smart manner, so that is you don't need to adopt a model that is kind of a mistake that has been made by this advanced economies, which is a high consuming economies. You can see that is where that Singapore, Australia, USA, and Japan are in terms of this energy consumption. What is the model this BIMSTEC countries are going to look into it? Here we have that is a global narrative comes in, that the historical responsibilities. On the other hand, and if you look into these countries, that is the net zero, and there is an opportunity for the cooperation, and here, and for example, India has been improved, and it's a track record in the case of the climate change performance index. So it is a long journey, and it took about 15 years, and this journey need to be completed, so if we are looking at most of the countries, BIMSTEC countries, particularly Bhutan is an example where they said they already declared it is a carbon neutral economy. And Myanmar is already has formulated the strategies focusing on the forestry sector. So how we can sue it, and how we can improve that is climate change performance. There is a way, that is unconventional way of thinking, to using this trade and investment channels towards sustainability. And one thing is that is what ASEAN is doing, is harnessing this renewable energy technology through the cross-border energy trade, where that is integrating the renewables into the power transmission, and basically they aim for substituting the hydropower for the power generation using the fossil fuels. There is a lot of unavoided carbon emissions. But on the other hand, if you look into, there is a kind of energy trade which will not be in the beginning stage, and it will not be a kind of a win-win. And the cost and benefits will not be equal if you look into it, because we are operating in a different policy regimes. So if in the case of for example, under TAO and Thailand and Lao PDR, and the benefit and cost ratio is very high, 14.2. But if you look into this, if that energy trade is expanded to include Malaysia and Singapore, and we get a less number. So somebody need to pay for this cost differentials. So most of the countries has these subsidy regimes. With this kind of existing subsidy regimes, and we cannot operate in a way that is the market efficiency. So we need to create a regionally coordinated mechanisms that contribute to this development of a diversified development of the renewable energy supply chains. And here a lot of potential exists with the BIMSTEC countries. You can exist for example, the solar supply chain, and most of these solar procurements are coming from the outside region, and here the countries can develop a production network. The 5 economies can come together. They can be a leading world, not only for the domestic market, but also these export markets. Another important thing is the where you get the finance, and this is very complicated area, where we have seen that is the develop a very different barriers exist. And this is a survey that is we did in the energy. And basically, if you look into the financing, that is where the financing for these green investments are going in. And most of this investment and are coming from the public resources. That means they're coming from the budget outlay from the governments. But most of the capital that is available in the private sector, but they are not flowing in to this. This is the climate change mitigation and the green actions. Why? Because we found there are the 3 different layers of barriers exist. One is the policy barriers, and then institutional barriers, and the market barriers. Policies, the governments changes their energy policy, industrial policy every day. So this policy, these changes in the policies, the complex procedures. No business, no private investor is interested in policy uncertainties. They look for a kind of an stability in the policies for the long term, at least for the 10 to 15 years. If we see the most of these infrastructure investments in the clean energy are the climate resilient infrastructures. it takes about 25 years to get to that is a full benefit. And unless otherwise we bring this kind of a regulatory certainty, no investment will be flowing in. Second is that institutional cost. And most of these projects and most of the investment has a high initial investment cost. So no private sector will be investing in a country to lose money. They are interested in getting the gains or at least the zero balance for the first 5 years. We need a kind of an tax breaks and some kind of incentive mechanisms for them. And third one is also unpredictable cash flows. This is expected, and also the exchange rate when you are in international investment and then consumer markets. And we don't know there are a lot of market challenges that need to be addressed, that need a kind of a coherent policy framework. So far, we don't have that kind of a policy framework in most of the emerging companies. So what we need to do is we need to look into a kind of two-way approaches, and one is for example technology-based policies, and then how the
Dr.
in these
Anbumuji,
technologies.
just to kind of tell you that probably it would be great if you could complete in the next 5 minutes so that we have another
Okay.
15-20 minutes for the Q&As. Because
Okay.
I see that
Okay, thank you.
a number of participants who would really like to ask you some questions.
Sure, and
Thank you.
I'll try to wrap up. And
Thank you.
So we have a kind of technologies, and these technologies need to be looked into it, and we do have the kind of technology-based policies and also the fiscal-based policies. One of the areas we need to look into this kind of stimulus measures, and it happened, and see here you can see that is the none of the business countries in this region has fared well in the case of green stimulus, and when compared to the other countries in, for example, in Europe, and here is kind of a missed opportunities. Another area is looking to is the tariff barriers that exist. If you can look into it, that is the countries like India has the high barriers for this green technologies when compared to, for example, Japan and Korea. So if you are interested in promoting this environmental front technologies, it has to be addressed. Another area is to look into it is the mechanisms, so that is linking the carbon market, and this is how the carbon market works, and this is the market force. There is a kind of an area where there is some of the countries, they need to look into the mitigation efforts beyond their value chain. And for example, the case of Japan and Korea, and their apartment cost is very high. So what they can look into, they can look into the BIMSTEC, where the cost of apartment is less. That is the how the financial flows and the carbon credits can happen, and so by exchanging the carbon credits, the technological and finance will flow into it. And this is how the carbon market works, and this is how, for example, if you look into it, and the cumulative carbon credits that is issued by the geography, and we find there are 287 projects in India, and they issued about 348 million. Most of them are coming in the forestry areas. So this is where there is most of the potentials and the future exist, and the nature-based solutions. So this is a kind of my last slide, and if BIMSTEC is looking for a climate smart, resilient, or the green transformation, and it need to look into it two areas. One is that market-based options, the free trade in the low carbon goods and circular economy services. That is the first pillar. And second one is the regional public and private financial resources. how this public resources could be utilized to be mobilize this private resources. And third one is the integration of the carbon market. These could be a market-based options. And the other two things need to be supported by that strengthening that innovation system within the 5 economies, and also the collective learning. And that is what today what we are here is a kind of a collective learning, how we can learn from the other regions and the countries. So these 5 strategies, if we are combined together and stimulated in a way, and it can give a kind of a pull and push. And so we are in the 2040, and if BIMSTEC is looking for a climate resilient and sustainable society, and my proposition is you people to think about the four areas, and in building the partnership among the countries, among the stakeholders, and with this international community. One is look into a dialogue and partnership and with the technology developers, the providers, and it need an environmental experts to be aligned their goals with the co-develop the innovations, and development of cross-border information platforms, looking at the sustainability and the resilience. It takes time. Second is the look into this is the financing structure and the business models. And in the initial period, and I think some countries, Thailand and India, are doing great. They are moving towards, and there may not be a commercial success. For example, hydrogen value chains, ammonia value chains, and electrical cars, and it takes time, but it may be less profitable. But we need to continue to work towards, and if you are working towards, and 5 countries work towards, then you will find minimize the cost. Then we need new emerging economies. Bay of Bengal is blue economy based. There are new industries like fisheries, and then port infrastructure, the connectivity, and the current approaches need to be regularly reviewed, and more policies towards need to be developed. That is how to link this emerging carbon market when we are looking at the cross-border energy trade, and that is linked to this carbon market. It need to be aligned, and we need to be assessed for the sustainability benefits. And third and the final one is the partnership with the international institutions. We need to look into these institutions, and most of the countries and in South Asia, and we have the colonial legacies, and we have the institutions that is agile, and we do have different governance systems, though it has inherited from our colonial masters. We need to develop a champion the common policy principles for managing the technological flows, and managing the trade, and managing that investment in the future. And it may need a kind of transparent mechanisms. The transparent mechanisms bring the trust, and with this trust, it becomes more flows of technology and the finance. I stop here, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anbumusi, for your insightful presentation. We have some questions in the chat box. I can read out these questions for you. The question from Mr. Ekramul Hassan is that what are the institutional arrangements that can be made in BIMSTEC to mobilize the funding for environmental and climate resilient projects?
What are the institutional arrangements and to finance? There is, as I mentioned, the finance, particularly for the green infrastructure projects, comes in 3 streams. One is the public finance that is coming from the government budgets, and the second one is the private finance, and third one is the international finance, particularly that is coming from the climate change mitigation. And if you look into the BIMSTEC region and including the Thailand, and it is a kind of unrealistic aspiration and unrealistic perception that is the international finance will flow. And international community has committed a kind of $200 billion per year to meet the climate goals, but it's not happening. And there is a huge gap between the aspiration and the reality. And given that, and what five economies can come together is how they can mobilize this private finance using this is the public finance. And there are several studies indicate that is if you are clever, putting $1 could be able to derive $10. That is called a leverage ratio. But this leverage ratio to maximize your public resources, you need strong institutions. That strong institution means they need a kind of good due diligence doing these projects. And not all the projects are bankable projects. So you need to facilitate an institutions that can transform. They can transform this project into a bankable project. Then only the private sector will flow in. The second thing is you need a de-risking mechanisms. And these de-risking mechanisms could be in the form of removing the subsidies, existing subsidies or perverse subsidies. There are subsidies that need to be there for the social security reasons, and safety nets need to be developed. That is where there is more innovative financing is need to come in. And then third one is the crowdfunding, and where there are several examples. And the Bangladesh's microcredit one of the examples. That is how it could be contributed. And what is main here is this institutions need to do is make sure that is the technology and the financial flow is happening together.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, we have another question from Mr. Tialuddin. He mentioned that Dr. Selim Raihan said in the previous session about the fossil fuel oligarch lobbies have a strong influence or influence us to switch towards renewable energy sources. So how do we tackle on that in policy level?
It is a tricky question, and that is the green investment, and if you look into the take-up flow of investment and the flow, financial flow into clean energy investment is major, and maybe about 10%, and that means another 90% of this investment are going into that is the fossil fuel. And it is happening. There will be a vested interest, but at the same time, we need to think still the fossil fuel is less expensive, more affordable, and how can I say it? It also brings the competitiveness and affordability, inclusivity, and competitiveness are linked to the fossil fuel. And still the cost of, though the cost of renewable energy is coming down, and still at not the rate at it, which is still the fossil fuel is competitive. And so what we can do that need a political will. And one is that the fossil fuel comes with this externalities, that externalities of the carbon emissions, the externality of the pollution. And so one way is the government to internalize these externalities that could come with a kind of a carbon pricing, right? Carbon pricing policies and And these policies, and if there is a 5 BIMSTEC economies and is working on, means it need to work in a coordinated and cohesive way. And if Bangladesh is putting $2 per ton of the carbon, and if Thailand is putting $1, then it brings a differential, and it will be it is going nowhere, and so these 5 countries need to come together, and it can develop a regime, and where the affordability and inclusivity and competitiveness could take into consideration.
Thank you, sir. We have a question from Mr. Zuel Rana. He asks that how can BIMSTEC countries can enhance regional cooperation for climate change research?
Yeah, it is a huge full area that is available, and where there's a lot of cooperation is there, and opportunities are there unutilized. It is not yet harvested, and from the research point of view, and I see it on the two angles. One is on the climate change risk. Another is the mitigation and the climate risk. And as I told before, and still our risk assessment and early warning systems are at the national level, and or at the global level. And probably one area that is the need to is to develop a network of modelers, and then come together and have that existing models. And you don't need to look into that is all the models. There is so many plenty of models, and to select one model and use it as a kind of a standardized validate for the region, and then downscale it to the next level at the district level, or at the level, or at the next, or the panchayat level, or like that. And so it need a kind of concerted effort. Second thing is the same with is the scientific community or the academic community is need to develop their communication skills, and what this risk modeling means to the policymakers or the decision makers. They need to communicate effectively. That skill is missing, and so we third, and maybe most of them, there are a lot of approaches. There is that can contribute for both the climate resilience and the climate mitigation. And we don't know these cost effectiveness of all these measures. And we know there is one is documenting this kind of a measure that is coming from the bottom up, and then do the kind of cost benefit analysis, and this will help the decision makers to understand and where to invest and how to invest and what scale to invest. This will also, this kind of information exchange could also help upscaling these technologies by the third party, and like international multilateral development banks or the bilateral development banks, and for this I strongly advocate, and for example, ASEAN has they have developed a ASEAN university network, and these 10 countries they select one institute. They come for develop a institutional network and focus on this. What are the priority needs? You cannot do it everything at the same time, and in this regard, and I uh, if you look into the BIMSTEC and by size, India is too big, and probably it need to take the leadership and create a fund, and then, for example, ASEAN and the India Innovation Fund is there, and probably you can bring about initiative and develop a grants or develop a pilot project, then this BIMSTEC University network to harness it. I think that is a way that is move forward. And
Thank you, sir. Another question from Srimoli Jayaratna. What is the role of BIMSTEC in promoting the blue economy?
that is interesting question, and blue economy has becoming a buzzword nowadays, and Here, blue economy has kind of a two component, and one is our traditional industries like aquaculture and fisheries, and how we can harness, how we can modernize these industries, and another is the kind of frontier area, that's kind of a new type of industries, and which has not been, which could be a kind of a future industries, and developing a green port, and that is how we can move it, and then that the critical minerals that is lying on the ocean bed or the deep seas, and third one is also, this is a kind of a tidal wave and other energies, and these new industries and are kind of an emerging, and this need to be harnessed collectively, and that need a lot of research and kind of forward-looking vision, and I think where, since all the countries share this Bay of Bengal, and ASEAN has developed the blue economy framework, and actually that is based upon this Indonesia's framework, national framework that is upscaled, and maybe looking as a kind of a starting reference point could be a guiding force for BIMSTEC.
Thank you, sir. Sir, another question from Carol Bhoj Pujal. How can BIMSTEC member state collaborate more effectively to develop regional strategies for climate resilience and sustainable development while addressing the specific vulnerabilities of the coastal and the mountainous ecosystem?
And that is the when we are thinking about the vulnerability, climate vulnerability, and as I told before, and the country, BIMSTEC countries, and they are committed for the Paris Agreement, and this Paris Agreement is also partly with this global stock taking experiences, and this it comes with the vulnerability, and every country has been this NDCs, enhanced NDCs, and also national adaptation plan. And this is the kind of a basic, and they have been reported to this UNFCCC, and that becomes the basic. We have the global commitment, and then whatever that is the BIMSTEC, and can think about is what could be the base of this national actions, and as well as the global framework that is available, and what could be the avenue and for the cooperation. And I foresee in the case of the vulnerability of these mountainous areas and these coastal zones, there could be a two areas or three areas. One is the climate information, and how what type of climate information could be shared in the coastal areas. If you look into this investment that is going on all the infrastructure, it is happening in the coastal areas. That will help you. Without a kind of climate information, we tend to adopt the maladaptation. That means we are putting more and more resources in the coastal areas, which will become a risky one in the future. So there is one area that is we need to look into, that is providing that climate information to the investors and to the other infrastructure builders. The second one is the areas, since all are the vulnerable regions, to need to increase the adaptive capacity, the decision-making capacity. The decision-making capacity may be high in the national capitals, in Bangkok and Dhaka and New Delhi and or Kathmandu. But if you look go into that next level, the cities, the local governments, they don't have the capacity. And here we need a kind of an adaptive capacity need to be increased or enhanced at the vertical level, at the horizontal level. So this is one second area of cooperation and coordination where BIMSTEC need to focus on. Third one is the adaptive finance, and there is the most of these coastal areas and the mountainous areas more vulnerable to the disasters and then increase the climate risk, and where that is the money is lying in. And here one area is uh, the role of the insurance mechanisms. And when there is the if you look into it, I don't have the exact number, and this is very difficult to conduct. Only less than 10% of these households are insured against these natural disasters and the climate risk. So in the case of the adaptation financing, and there are examples, for example, in Japan, where it is central government, the local government, and the private sector coming together to provide the insurance to all these vulnerable communities. So they reduce the premium cost. So here there is more innovations need to happen. And that is where one area, there is a third area where that is BIMSTEC can work on it.
Thank you, sir. Sir, another question from Ms. Shruti. How can BIMSTEC countries facilitate the transfer of climate-friendly technologies and knowledge to enhance their resilience and reduce the carbon footprints?
You need to understand that the technologies, that is it is a simple word to use, but if you look into this technologies, and technology is not with the governments, it is not with the communities, but the technologies are with the private sector. The proven effective technologies are coming with the private sector. The private sector doesn't provide the technologies for free. So you need to understand these mechanisms. So what we need is a kind of a framework. And also these technologies could be advanced technologies, or the technology that is available, or the technologies that is will be emerging in the future. So what we need to is, and also there is a local technologies, and here we need to identify when we say the technologies, where it fit into it, what is the taxonomy of the technologies, and where it fit into the vulnerability or the mitigation, and whether we have the technologies, the taxonomy of the technologies. And second thing is how these technologies will be helpful in reducing the environmental pollution or the mitigation or enhancing vulnerability, that you need to be codified. Then comes the startup of what type of a public-private partnership would be needed, and knowing that is these technologies are very much lies with the private sector. So we need to bring some of the technologies that could need scaling up. And if these 5 economies, BIMSTEC economies, are coming together and you have the scale merit, then the cost of the technologies will be coming down. And with the right incentives by the public sector, and by increasing the adaptive capacity of the technologies, and the technology has the supply side and the demand side. So that you can supply the technologies, but the receiver need to have their capacity and capability to absorb the technologies, to use it. We have seen many technologies that has been supply sided, and we found many of them didn't serve the purpose very well. So this kind of a risk need to be done, and we also need to see that is what we learned from the past experiences and how we can enhance this public private, and I can say it is a people partnership. Public private people partnership is very much needed.
Thank you, sir. Sir, we have another question from Pravidi Odhikari. It's that, is there any research done in BIMSTEC platform about the impact of consumption of electric vehicle by the BIMSTEC countries and its future impact that would support the climate change as well as the carbon emission. If any, please refer some documents or links.
I don't find a regional study on it, particularly focusing on BIMSTEC, but I come across several reports about this EV vehicle production use in Thailand, Bangladesh, and India. And if you look into it, the studies, and there is a promising, and most of the countries in the region has that kind of ambitious target for phasing out these IC vehicles, and particularly the four-wheelers and the two-wheelers. And they have, it's kind of mixed basket of studies. And what I can observe is uh, it is a kind of a tricky issue when coming to these emission reductions, impact of the EV and the emission reduction. Even I did one study on it in the ASEAN, and how to calculate the emission reductions, and total life cycle costs, starting from the well to tank, and then from the tank to wheel emissions. It is a tricky issue, and it is a kind of a mixed results. And if you see the total life cycle cost of the emissions, uh, so it is, but most of the studies ends with that is still EV is kind of environmental friendly in terms of the carbon emission reductions. On the other hand, and it has the one study that is we found in when coming to the cost, and this EV is the only kind of it need a support infrastructure. For example, building these charging stations, mm, and this battery swap stations, and it works for the short term, for the short haul vehicles within the cities. But if it's the long distance, we need an infrastructure. So that infrastructure costs are often excluded in the total assessment in these countries, and that need to be looked into it. And third constraint, and which has not been discussed in this any of the studies, is the unintended consequences of this EV penetration. And EV is in the good, and but in the future, that is how we are going to recycle these batteries, and which may become, and when your two-wheelers and the four-wheelers becoming all driven by the batteries, and so what could be the impact, and that has not been studied. And fourth one is one study that is I came up is India has also had an ambitious plan on EVs. They have the targets. They wanted to replace all the IC engines by 2060 or so. And later they found that is the meeting this target will also increase their trade balance, particularly with China, and because most of these supply chains and the batteries are originating from that country. So it may has an impact on the trade balance. And so then they later modified their targets. And so there are several complex issues, and most of the studies, emerging studies coming up, is looking only one part of that segment and not the holistic and comprehensive, and at the national level. And to my knowledge, sorry, I may be ignorant, and there is no regional study on the BIMSTEC as of now.
Thank you, sir. Sir, as we are already running out of time, we will take one last question from the chat box, and then we will ask Mr. Mahbub Alam, who raised his hand, to ask his question. The last question from the chat box is how BIMSTEC is working on arresting the greenhouse gas emission from the agriculture sector. Sir, can you answer this question in brief?
How the region, I don't have about the kind of a region-wide knowledge, but I look into the individual countries, and uh, Thailand and which is a part of the ASEAN, and they are moving into the carbon market, and particularly the agriculture, the carbon farming, and by going for this less intensive carbon farming and preserving the forest, and how they can trade this mitigation potential. And that is where there is a Thailand is moving in terms of agriculture sector. And in India, a lot of efforts are going for this methane emission, and particularly avoided methane emission that comes with the rice intensification. That is alternate wetting and drying in the particularly focusing on the paddy fields. Then Bangladesh is also basically it is looking into this paddy agriculture, and also they are looking into that is increase the energy efficiency of fishery sector, particularly the shrimp and agriculture. And so these are the sector specific. And third, one of the areas where that is I find the common strategy in the still we cannot say it is a common strategy. The countries are doing in a separate way, and they do in the agriculture sector, and they are trying to avoid this post-harvest losses, and that is which is accounting for about 14% of the food supply. And so by enhancing this efficiency, and they are trying. And one of these initiative that is where that is India has considered part of G20 initiative. They also consulted with all the global countries in the South is the how to make this agriculture value chain climate smart and resilient, and providing this technology, including the digital technologies, and providing the early warning systems. That is what I know about the agriculture sector. And thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to request Mr. Mahbub Alam to ask your question very briefly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Suresh. This is the Mahbub Alam from BIMSTEC Secretariat. I am basically looking after the security division, including disaster management. So I thank you, sir, also for Anubhaji for your comprehensive presentation. I saw a couple of questions that very much related to BIMSTEC disaster management and environmental climate change. Sorry. That I like to update in BIMSTEC what are you doing at this moment for particular disaster management and environmental climate change. I'd like to inform you that the BIMSTEC Center Weather and Climate that already established in Noida, India. This center is basically mandated to do the research for climate and meteorological issues. And they have also still a committee on scientific advisory committee and also the governing board committee. They are basically mandated to do that part. And I already applied in the chat box, every Thursday, the BIMSTEC Center Weather and Climate, they forecast the weekly weather modeling and what is happening next week in the BIMSTEC region. That will be available in the BCW's website. And it particularly also comes to the another issue scam I saw, the bull economy. Though the BIMSTEC also have a strong mechanism that expert group of bull economy that comprises the experts, all 7 member states are the members of the expert group. And the leaders are mandated to finalize a plan of action on the bull economy and comprises lots of issues. The bull economy is a very cross-cutting issues, particularly the energy and so the environment and also the other security issues. So that's now is a segregate and that dealing that issues. I think next meeting that Bangladesh will host the expert group meeting and they will finalize and discuss that bull economic component. And then another issues I saw in that issue, what are the research particularly, and also the meteorological data, how it be available. So I already replied in the chat box, that all the BMD and IMD, I mean Meteorological Department, all the 7 member states are the nodal agencies in the depository to data of the BCWC. So BCWC is the repository and hub of the all kind of information that provided by that specific nodal points. So this kind of mechanism have already BIMSTEC have, and they are doing their part also. So our main lacking is to that this is not the publicly reached, we didn't have yet, but BIMSTEC is doing that part, and we are trying to reach out the general public that can easily reach out that kind of product. So we are not doing that part. But whatever the issues are discussed, most of these things are we already conducting, and we are still collaborating among the all 7 member states. So I think, sir, this kind of information it will help this kind of workshop. Thus, I try to brief that status what is happening in BIMSTEC at this moment. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Alam. I think I'm glad to hear that his BIMSTEC is already working on it and a lot of good initiatives. And my best wishes. And for example, if we coming to this, coming to the disaster resilience, and you could also look into the ASEAN Humanitarian Assistance AHA Center, and it is a kind of interregional body that is developed, and they are working modalities and other things. And the one thing that is they developed the AMDR, ASEAN Management of Disaster Resilience. And this is a kind of one of the regional, what I think is one of the model regional cooperation framework. When the disaster was declared as a kind of a national the regional disaster, and for the next 72 hours, these national boundaries disappear. That means any emergency supply could land in. They don't need to, there is when the disaster happens, the bureaucracy still exists, and that golden hours has been lost in clearing the kind of a bureaucratic approvals. And so they say when a disaster is announced as a natural disaster for the next 72 hours, the boundaries disappear and any relief supply could be landed in. And this has been enhanced with this improving these early warning systems, and they developed a platform and for the developing partner countries, and where there is, I think this is BIMSTEC resources could be optimized, and many countries has their existing framework conditions, and that could be harmonized, and so that is BIMSTEC would become a very climate resilient and disaster-proof region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anbu.
Sir, you will allow, sorry, sir.
Sorry, Mr. Alam. We'll talk about it and we'll interact about it later on too, because we have another session. It's already been late.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And but for excellent presentation, Dr. Anbu Moji. I think that was so I think thought-provoking, and some of the issues you mentioned and discussed, it's extremely useful for all of us. I'm quite sure the participants, they actually benefited quite a lot from your evaluation. So with this, we from SANEM and Asia Foundation, we thank you once again for being with us and sharing your experience, a very rich experience. And we look forward to engaging with you in the future too. Thank you, Dr. Anbu.
Thank you. It is my pleasure. And if you have any specific concerns, still we can communicate by email. Thank you.
Of course, of course.